So in the last video, we talked about the Seven Sisters and how they were responsible for developing oil worldwide. OPEC was formed in part to response to the control of that Seven Sisters, with these countries desiring to have greater control over their fate and specifically over the pricing and the production of oil. OPEC was formed with a few Persian Gulf countries and Venezuela, and you can see that it's added more members since then. Very important to this is understanding what happens in the world as we begin a discussion of prices in a few slides, and that is that U.S. production peaked in 1970. It wasn't just the Seven Sisters that were setting the price of oil, but with the Black Giant and the rise of pro-rationing, in essence, Texas, which was the biggest producer, in the Texas Railroad Commission, was able to control the supply of oil simply by adjusting the pro-rationing, and that gave them control over the prices. We'll pick that up with OPEC in just a minute. In terms of OPEC and what it controls, you can see it controls the majority of the world's proven reserves. That is a key point to understand, and that is, what does the word proven reserves mean? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you can see that Venezuela is the nation with the single largest reserves, not doing a lot of good right now. They're not using very efficiently. And then Saudi Arabia. Although there had been a relative area of price stability in the post-World War II time frame, that was about to change with the formation of OPEC. In 1972 and into 73 and 74, in response to the U.S. Supply of Israel in the 72 Arab-Israeli War, the Arab countries put an oil embargo against the United States. You can see that caused a massive price spike. And even as the embargo eroded over time, prices still stayed fundamentally high. Incidentally, this was a very good time for Texas, because Texas is still the largest oil producer in the United States, and those high prices are being paid to Texas oil men as well. Well, what happens next? In the late 70s, then, we have more instability in the Middle East. We have the return of Ayatollah Khomeini and the fall of the Shah in Iran, which is a major producer of oil. And then in 1980, war kicks off between Iraq and Iran, two major producers of oil, and all that uncertainty causes prices to rise. The world market adjusts to that, and you see that prices did come down quite a bit, but the reason they didn't fall lower faster was because Saudi Arabia cut back on their production of oil, and they tried to get OPEC as a whole to cut back to maintain those high prices. When you see that after Saudi had tried that for a while and was not able to keep the price from going down, they said, well, we might as well pump if everyone else is going to cheat, and they all did cheat, and that caused the prices to plummet again. And so if you go back to that, you look at that time frame, look at the Texas economy. When that happened, OPEC decision to do that, that caused the worldwide price of oil to plummet, which is when a lot of oil companies in Texas failed. Got a little bit of a price spike in the 1990-1991 timeframe due to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait and then Desert Shield, Desert Storm. All of the price spikes and drops that I've talked about to now, though, have been based on supply disruptions, either an increase or a decrease in supply. In the late 1990s, a lot of Asian economies slipped into deep recessions, which caused a reduction in demand for oil. So this was, if you will, an economic shock to the system. And that reduction in demand also caused a drop in oil. Then as the economies recovered, so did the price. And then we see the big price rise that came in the 2000s, and you could largely say China. The growth of the Chinese economy, as the economy grows, as affluence grows, energy consumption grows, and it looks like the market for oil is very strong. And I'll talk about speculation and how that future look also went into the oil. But then we see in 2008, 2009, as the world slipped into a deep recession, again, very quick response to that reduction in demand, and the price plummeted. Now, as the economy stabilized, demand got back to a more reasonable level. And again, people became more confident in the future of demand, and that's a key part. And prices came up. we know that prices are back down. What I want to do with this slide is give you a little bit more detailed look at why that is. If you look into the late 2014 timeframe, the blue line, which is production, and the black line is consumption, you see that we begin to produce more than we're consuming. Again, this is on a global basis. And we see those reserves starting to build. Now, if you get out and you measure it very finely, you realize the mismatch between production and consumption in that time frame is on the order of 1 million to 1.5 million barrels of oil a day. And this is in an oil market that's consuming about 96 million barrels of oil. So we're talking about, at most, a 2% mismatch in supply and demand, but yet prices drop from over 100 to the 60s and actually go as low as the 20s. And so you get a sense of the price of oil is incredibly sensitive to mismatches between supply and demand. And so that's one way of saying, just like we saw in the early days, the very early days, right after Colonel Drake struck oil, that there's wild swings in prices. There are still wild swings in prices, and there will probably always be wild swings in prices. And the fact that there's futures trading in the oil market, which is speculation, means those price swings will probably be greater than what they might be if people just lived in the moment, so to speak. So when the production outstripped consumption in 2015, why did the price fall all the way down in the early 2016 timeframe to below $30? Well, there was this fear that, boy, this is just the future, and there's always going to be too much oil in the market, and prices crater. That has to do with the futures trading and the NYMEX and what people are worried about is going to happen in the future. So it's not living in the moment. The oil price is determined not only by what people see happening right now, but what they think is going to happen in the future. Why did prices go so high in the 2000s? Actually, production and supply were pretty matched. But what the problem was is that people thought that oil was that we were basically peaking in our production of oil, that oil was going to become increasingly scarce. And of course, they think in the future prices are going to be much higher, which means they get priced up even in the immediate. So that little corner of the box down on the right is the main takeaway. Oil price is driven by supply and demand. Oil is largely a commodity. The fact that there is speculation, futures trading is not just what's happening right now, but what people think are going to happen in the future. And if you're going into the oil business, you're going to pay a lot of attention to these things. In fact, when we get together, I'm going to have you give me your estimates for oil prices and why you feel that way, and we'll see what you think. We'll look forward to it.